So I like to just call it the black spot. Like I like Pirates of the Caribbean, so I have a few lines from those movies that I tend to use when I'm with people. Anyway, this is the black spot. You know what I'm talking about? Like you have the black spot and it's like, oh, it's you're dying. You're dead. You're dead, 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 you're dead. Okay. So just gentle reminder, about 84 to 86% of the world's email is considered spam in any given month. That's fun. What is a blacklist? It's the naughty list. It's the thing that mama and dada always tried to tell us, like, you're going to be on the naughty list. There's IP blacklists, there's domain blacklists, there's internal block lists. So it identifies the domains or the IPs that are known to send spam. Plain and simple. ISPs subscribe to the different blacklists and they use them in their decision making, but they don't use all of them, and some of them actually get ignored. So there's dozens of blacklists out there, and each ISP gets to decide which ones they actually want to take information from and how they want to act on that information. So if you just kind of look at this general flow here, there's us, the sender. Green line carries us over to the receiver. But before it's dumped into a folder, preferably the one we want, it goes over to a whatever blacklist they're associated with. So this one just happens to say spam house, which is a bad one, by the way. I don't want to be on that one. But it evaluates whichever blacklist it's looking to. And it says, do we have a problem here? Yes or no? And then it comes back and it makes a policy decision. The policy is not the blacklist policy. The policy is like Google's policy or Yahoo's policy, whatever it is. And then based on that policy decision, it's going to go down one of three roads. It's going to reject it entirely. You're out of here. Not even allowed on the property. Isabella upstairs. We'll handle this. Or it's going to accept the message and goes into the mailbox. Now, it still may categorize it as promotions or something. That's a different evaluation. Or it's going to tag the message and it's going to go through further spam filtering. We need to take a deeper look at this situation before we decide where to put this email or even if we're going to keep it. So that's kind of how that whole thing works. But whatever's over on the very right-hand side with the blue arrows is different for each email provider. Like they get to decide which ones they're using for evaluation on any given day. And so how do you know if you're on a blacklist? Well, you see your drop rate go down, how many emails are failing, your fail rate, goes up. Clearly I'm upside down on that one. The domain drop rate goes up and your permanent fail rate goes up. Whatever it's called in whatever system you're using, you're going to just start to see emails are not making it. And then the SMTP logs, they reference blocks in the error messages. So if you're using your own SMTP like Mailgun or SendGrid, you can see the logs. The logs will actually show you the error messages for why something didn't get through. And even though some of it's a little bit cryptic, you generally can tell when it says the email from this IP address was blocked due to, and then it has like spam house listed or something like that. Your delivered rate's going to go down concurrently. If your permanent fail rate's going up, your blocks, your drop rate's going up, then your delivery rate is going to go down. And then you can also check to see if you're on blacklists through a tool called MX Toolbox, which looks like this. There's lots of tools you can use. This is just the one we like. It's mxtoolbox.com. There's a bunch of menu stuff up here. It usually shows up on the MX lookup tab, so don't put in your stuff and hit the orange button because you'll be like, wait, that's not what I wanted. Go to the blacklist menu, put in your IP or your domain name, emailtoinbox.com. You can do this with anyone's, by the way. You could look up mine if you wanted to. Have fun. And then hit blacklist check. And then what it's going to do is it's going to show you a list of all the dozens of blacklists that are known. And you don't have to scroll at all because any of them that you're on it, there's no scrolling required. They're just going to jump up to the top. It's going to have a red X up here and it'll tell you exactly which one you're on. And it'll tell you the reason, kinda. So it's not like it says, you did this thing wrong. It might be like, I looked up emailtoinbox.com, which is what's up here, and I wasn't on any, but what if I was? The reason might say IP address 1.2.3.4 is listed Oh, well, that's different. So my domain isn't really blacklisted. It's the IP address my domain is associated with, which could be like my website, my A record. It could be like, this is where my website is hosted. It's on this IP. And so now my domain is referencing that IP address. And so that IP is on a blacklist. Sometimes you'll be on a blacklist because of an IP address, and it's something like that. And you're talking to GoDaddy and be like, hey, can we move to a different IP because this one's on a blacklist? Most of the time, you don't have to do that. And most of the time, by the way, they're not interested in that conversation. But I would say like 98% of the time, it doesn't friggin' matter. Because the blacklist that you're on has nothing to do with email. So not all of these have to do with email. Some of them have to do with other things unrelated to email. And some of them, who cares? If I'm on some of these blacklists, like UC Protect, I don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about UC Protect. So you can be on it all day, every day, and just sail on. Don't worry about it. So there's different types. There's IP and domain. And then the larger ISPs like Google and Yahoo and Outlook, they actually have their own internal block list. This is fun. I have some fun stories about this. And some of them are sustained, like you're on there until, I don't know, they decide to take you off at some hopefully near future kind of a thing, but who knows? Some of them are temporary. It could only last 3 days, maybe 5 days, maybe 30 days, something like that. There's common blacklists. So Spam House being like the top dog. Oh my gosh, I don't want to be on there. And actually Barracuda would be the next one I would hate to be on. But that is usually for businesses that have signed up for this service. The Barracuda is not as common, but it's just as bad as Spam House. Spam House is like the big daddy of blacklists. Sorb, Spam Cop, those ones are problematic. Zero Spam, less problematic. Not a lot of email service providers actually subscribe to them. So if you're on Zero Spam and you notice that Outlook is blocking you, but everybody else is fine with it, that would be why. So there's a ton. There's dozens of them, but I just wanted to give you the most common ones. And then all the bigger ISPs have their own internal block lists. They might separate those block lists between paid users, like branded domains, email addresses with branded domains, like a Google Workspace or something, versus just a gmail.com. So they might have separate block lists for the free email users that you're sending to versus the ones that have paid for the accounts. I think this is probably a good time for me to stop and tell you that story.